Coming up next.
The dopamine loop in our lives, right? That gives us the joy, like our good conversation you and I are having right now, it's going to be on a scale of like 1 or 2. Um, when we are exposed, and I see this a lot when boys are exposed to digital addiction, it gives them ramps their dopamine up, like, oh, this is amazing. Whether it's digital addiction or images that they see, it changes their brain chemistry. And it's hard for boys to come down. So the things that I've seen are boys that have numbed out, to answer your question. I call it muting the mic, where our boys are, even our daughters, are having conversations with us that are normal. And then one day we notice there's a shift. I call it optical pulse. They're no longer making eye contact with us. They're no longer having those meaningful conversations with us. And they just become muted because they're carrying some guilt and they're carrying some shame. And one of the things that I love to talk about is this is a no shame game for us. I talked to my son Gus about, he's 11. I have a 22-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old daughter, but I have a 11-year-old son. And he and I talk about this a lot. And I love that conversation. But this is a no shame game. If you are exposed or you see something, you can come to dad, because I'm working hard to build an authentic relationship with him where he feels comfortable.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You are here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength, because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host, and I am really excited about our guests because, as you know, I am raising boys myself, and Doug Moore has made this a career in the areas that boys really love: wilderness, adventures, trails, all those types of things. And he has written a book called The Vanguard Project, Equipping Fathers to Fight for Their Sons. And this is something that I've said on many podcasts, that if we don't raise our children, the world will raise our children for us. So Doug, tell us what you're doing, how you got in here, bring us into your
Absolutely.
world.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for having me. For years, in my younger years, I spent a lot of times taking young men into the wilderness and doing many wild adventures. That gave me an opportunity to really see into the lives of a lot of young men. And as I transitioned out of that into becoming a youth pastor, my work continued working with men and young women about life and what it takes to live life and God's truth in their life. And then eventually became a registered nurse and was through a series of events became a SANED certified nurse. And so my eyes have been open to the things that young men and young women struggle with. And so it's become a passion of mine. I really want to change the narrative and I want to really set young men up for what God really has ordained for their lives, the truth, and what God's blueprint for them is. One, to glorify Him, and two, to be a leader, but also be a contributor and love and honor everyone, especially women. As a nurse, I've just seen so much damage that I'll be honest, young men and men have caused because of the lies that they believe. And I want to switch it. I want to change the narrative and make sure that that's not make sure, but to give them the truth. And so that's where it was all born out of. I mean, I never set out to be an author, but this is more of a passion that God has given me.
One of the things that's on the Vanguard Project website, and let me pull it so I can read it directly. You say that the Vanguard Project equipped fathers to protectively lead their sons through the challenges of the digital world, moving from the back of the pack to the front, and that the average age of exposure is 8, and the battle starts there. Can you share with us what bred that statement?
Well, I've sat in rooms, and I share this a lot, but I've sat in rooms and tables and with dads and moms, real like getting the effects of what they've realized their children are battling with and what they've gone through. And through our research, we realized that exposure is early and earlier because of the digital devices that we have. Um, Dads and moms, and I'm not excluding myself from this, that we think we have it all together. As you know, we're all raising young men and young women and seeing the struggle. So, yeah, those stats are alarming. And one of the things that I really want to push and that we push is to have authentic relationships. And sometimes I'll be honest, dads are absent from the process. And it is the women that are taking the lead. So the whole idea behind the Vanguard is it's a military term that instead of leading from the back, you're going to lead from the front. You're going to advance. You're going to go before your kids and show them the way to go. You're going to lead them to the path. It may be something that you've experienced. Our scars that we have don't disqualify us from leading. They actually give us the right tools. And I love that. So that's sharing a little bit down the road there. But yeah, it's alarming, isn't it? That stat's very scary. When I was a young man, my exposure was different. Um, but I was still exposed. But I think it's the battle. I don't want to be one of those old people like it's worse now, but it really genuinely is. It is very worse, a lot worse. Not
So
very.
when we're looking at, I told you earlier, mine are 18 and 21. We held off till early teens with offering a phone. We were very restrictive with computer use and television time. And I must tell you, I have had one already come back and say thank you for
Hmm.
not exposing us to all of this so quickly. What let's do it. Let's do it this way. What effects are you seeing in the young person's lives? And then what are and we learn by doing it wrong. What are the ways that parents are battling that are not helpful?
Yeah. So dopamine is one of the things that we know contributes to our the addiction. This is what I've seen, and I'll share this with you. I mean, the dopamine loop in our lives, right? That gives us the joy, like our good conversation you and I are having right now, it's going to be on a scale of like one or two. Um, when we are exposed, and I see this a lot when boys are exposed to digital addiction, it gives them ramps their dopamine up, like, oh, this is amazing, whether it's digital addiction or images that they see. It changes their brain chemistry, and it's hard for boys to come down. So one of the things I saw a lot in our wilderness trips is boys that could not shut off the digital um, uh, fuel that they're receiving, like where it be Minecraft or Fortnite or games that they're playing. It would be a constant thing for them. But one of the things I loved is like 1 to 2 days in of our trip, they it's like they come out of a fog or a coma and their awareness. So the things that I've seen are boys that have numbed out, to answer your question. I call it muting the mic, where our boys are, even our daughters, are having conversations with us that are normal. And then one day we notice there's a shift. I call it optical pulse. They're no longer making eye contact with us. They're no longer having those meaningful conversations with us. And they just become muted because they're carrying some guilt and they're carrying some shame. And one of the things that I love to talk about is this is a no shame game for us. I talked to my son Gus about he's 11. I have a 22-year-old daughter, a 19-year-old daughter, but I have a 11-year-old son. And he and I talk about this a lot. And I love that conversation. But this is a no shame game. If you are exposed or you see something, you can come to dad because I'm working hard to build an authentic relationship with him where he feels comfortable. But I mean, like you mentioned, you have grown children and the damage, quote unquote, damage is already done. And where do we go from there? And I think that's constantly leaning in and constantly loving them and letting them know that you're always going to be there for them, especially with adult children.
Let's define what we're talking about with exposure. Because on this podcast, we talk about sex addiction and pornography. We know that's there. Lots of parents think, yeah, that's a big one. But you just talked about Minecraft. You just talked about things that we've talked about before with digital detox. Give us some areas that you have seen and some examples where young men and young women are struggling.
Yeah, like for boys, it's things that are stacked on top of each other, right? Like there's gaming addiction that we see boys like 6, 8, 10 hours a day playing Roblox or Fortnite, and Roblox is a whole different conversation with the same dopamine loop, and even short form video. Some of my daughter's friends, I see them really addicted to just watching videos over and over again, like the 15-second bursts, and they can't sit really still long enough for like a real conversation. Um, and even we're seeing that the AI chatbots and boys spending hours talking to AI. So it is the constant digital influx. And for girls, as I already mentioned, I've seen a lot, and especially in the youth group. I still work with the youth group in our church. We see a lot of kids just addicted to social media. And the algorithm learns what we like, right? It keeps feeding us. It's a constant feeding to what we crave. And so we see that. And one of the things, I call it the Xbox generation, but it's gotten even worse, where young men have difficulty even holding down jobs. And I think that's part of this epidemic too, not wanting to really work hard because all they have been fed is this false narrative that the digital world is better. Not only we're talking about exposure to pornography, but like you said, gaming addiction. It's pretty rampant, and I know you all talk about that a lot in your podcast.
Well, that and like you said, the 15-second videos, all those types of things. So this may offend some people. I'm going to throw it back on us parents. We were introduced to this as adults, most of us.
Yeah.
And the example that we're setting, I don't know how many restaurants you've been to in the last week.
Oh, yeah.
The example that we're setting breaks my heart. And that is parents in front of their phone while the ones who don't have phones because they're so young are just wandering off, or because the parents want to talk or the adults want to talk, they're handing the phone to the wee one. That just that crushes me, Doug. What are your thoughts on that?
It drives me crazy. We were at a restaurant the other day and mom and dad are scrolling and the daughter's got headphones on watching Bluey. I'm like, why are we even out eating? Why didn't you just stay home and sit in front of the TV? Um, it's scary. We it's can't even have real conversations. People have difficulties. I don't know if you've been to restaurants lately that have policies. I know our local Chick-fil-A, they'll have a box on the table and they encourage that's the digital device lock. So everybody puts their device in there, they'll lock it. And if you keep in there for a certain amount of time, they'll bring you free dessert, like a motivation. I'm like, we're trying to motivate families, like give them reward. Like if you can do this, 40, 50-year-old people, we're going to give you a treat. And it is it and I mean, life is hard. This is a part of we're trying to encourage, like, you've worked a long day, I've worked a long day, and sometimes the only thing that we know to do is to numb out, and it's not really wanting to connect, not intentionally. It's just we have like an easy device, and we've seen that. I want to share a story. I mean, we took some boys camping. I run a trail life troop, which is an outdoor leadership program where we take young men out into the woods, and it's very gospel based. And so we're putting up tents, and there's a young man putting up his tent, trying, struggling. He can't get it, and his dad is 10 feet away, just scrolling on his device, just doing
Mm-hmm.
this over and over again, oblivious. And not to say that us dads were better, but we saw this going on. We go and help this young man, help him put up his tent. But it just broke my heart because he's just longing. He's looking at his dad's like, I'm glad these men have stepped in, but I really want you, dad, to be engaged. And yeah, we're a victim of what we've grown up with. It's sad. I just really want to equip dads and moms specifically, and that's one of the goals. In the book, I have conversation scripts. I call them on-ramp questions. If you don't know how to talk to your children about anything, just basic questions, how to start the conversation, and then even conversation scripts. I'm not really here to tout a book. I'm really here just to tout, let's change the narrative. But there's conversation scripts in the book that how to have the first talk about anything, whether it be exposure, gaming addiction, AI. Like, some of us haven't had that. Nobody's really taught us how to have those conversations. And I mean, we can ask AI now, right? But who knows what it's going to tell us?
Well, that's and there is a lot of stuff out there right now that AI is wrong. But
Yes,
how do
yes,
you learn to have those conversations? How do you learn to bring it to the table? And I must say that I have been very astringent to the point of driving my family away with some very clear rules. If you don't sit, I haven't worked hard on this meal for you to sit at my table and scroll. That sounds reasonable until you get to the adult stage to where you can't set those rules
right.
anymore.
Yeah,
And so I have really struggled, and this may be later teens too, of I want to spend time with you. So I need to be present when you're ready to be present. And that may not be at a meal because the more I pushed, the more they ran. So My first thought
Mm,
with the father of the story that you were is it's not the son that needs to be confronted, it's the dad that needs to be
absolutely.
confronted.
Absolutely. We
How
know
do
that.
you do that in love and pick timing? And that's what I think we're so afraid, or we don't know how to connect. Maybe we just don't know how to connect. We're so afraid. It is very clear in the Bible that we are to confront those who are dealing in sin. Now, we're all dealing in sin, so we
Hmm.
may all need to be confronted. But what would be an appropriate follow-up at that point with a spouse, with a extended family who says, "No, I'm just going to look this up." I'm like, "No,
No.
you're not."
Yeah. We well, one of the things we've started doing is we try to find campsites that have no
Yes.
coverage.
Yes.
I know,
Yes.
but intentionally, we have a cabin that we like to go to that we know there's no internet, there's no connection, and we have to talk. And then here's the struggle. Somebody will say, "Well, what does so and so mean?" They're like, well, how do we find that out? Because we can't ask. But I love it. We're just like, we'll write it down and look it up later. My son Gus is very good at this. He's like, I don't want a device, Dad, till I get older. I'm like, well, you're 11 now. We'll see how you feel when you get 15 or 16. But he calls his sister screenagers
Uh-huh.
when they're on their phones. So, not that that's the cure, but one of the things we did with this dad is the Bible is clear, and we have a good opportunity just to speak truth to him. So later in the day, I was like, "Hey, man, your son is struggling," and I don't know what he was doing, but I'm not going to name names because they may listen to this. But you need to actually, he was longing for you to be there, and he did not have the awareness that that was going on. So wanting to be an authentic guy, he's like, "You're right. I need to put this down." And it's good. I mean, you've
Fantastic.
tried this. We declare a no phone zone. We put our phones down at dinner and we're like, all right, nobody's going to get the phone, but it's an addiction. We reach for it. So we've tried that. And one of the crazy things that I've done is if I pick up my phone and my wife or I'm having dinner, I was like, I really need to send this text. I need to check the weather for tomorrow. Is it okay that I do that right now? Because I know I'm checking the weather, but the next thing I'm doing is I'm like, oh, checking the email from work. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a constant loop. So with our adult children, one of the things that we've really, really tried to do is say, hey, we're going to have this intentional time right now, and we're going to all put our phones over here. Would that be okay with you? The second strategy that we've used is, hey guys, when do you think would be a good time for us? Excuse me, what are some good ground rules that we can set for our conversation tonight? And a lot of times they'll say, hey, why don't we not do our phones for this amount of time? Great. They have ownership in that, right? They've set that ground rule themselves. So it wasn't my idea, it was your idea. I mean, those are strategies that we try to use. Into the book, we really talk about you can put tons of filters, all the filters we want, but you already know this. Having young men, um, they're going to leave our home one day and make their own choices, and that's the hardest challenge we have. Right now, what I'm talking about is like how to father when they're at home, but then we've got what we call the long siege. That everything we did is not working, and what do we do at that point? And really, our only strategy is just to I mean, we are helpless in a lot of way, right? We're going to keep praying for them. We're going to keep loving them unconditionally. I mean, really, they're not going to listen to us anymore. So I have a principle that I talk about, and I'll share this briefly. It's called the shield wall, and it's getting people to walk alongside of you as we raise our kids. So that's going to be, it could be anyone, but in the book I put could be a grandfather, an uncle, a pastor, people that really align with your values that you've vetted. And for a woman, it could be the same type of an aunt, a grandmother like figure. I picked those intentionally because they're in different generations and they're
Mm.
going to be people that line up with you. So this is what I've seen be effective. When our mic is muted by our children, they think we're dumb. We no longer have any wisdom for them. They're like, why don't you ask Uncle Chuck? Or why don't you ask your pastor or my good friend John? they know John, like, yeah, I'll go ask John. And John's going to say the same thing that I'm going to say. But John is the wisest person they've ever talked to in their life. Did you know that John said I should do A, B, and C? I'm like, isn't that amazing? I know. Wow, John is so smart, even though I kind of told you that already. But yes, John is so. I mean, that's one of the tools that I suggest putting in your tool belt is having people that'll help fight this alongside of you. And I mean, it's hard, and raising your boys. So we got to have people that fight alongside.
Well,
Hopefully,
Doug,
they answered your question. I answered 25 questions in one, but
you did. And I think the hardest part is saying, well, yeah, Uncle so and so is the smartest person in the world. What a great answer he gave you. And letting them, but this with spouses and with
oh
friends,
yeah,
and they'll come back to you. And some people are wise enough to say, okay, I've heard this 3 times now. You were one of the voices. Now I'm ready to begin to process it.
yes,
We're all
yep.
different processors. But I'm gonna I'm
That's the problem with addiction too, right? But go ahead.
I'm gonna give you one even deeper. So I not only sent them there, I would call the people and prep it. Now, this is part of the codependency. This is part of the control issue. I am fully aware that some of that is a problem. Sometimes I still do it. And I will tell my church or my prayer group in private and say, this is what I really need. If you see this young man, can you step in and say hello? They're not I don't expose them. I just say, hey, they're really struggling with getting a job, or it's senior year and the girlfriend just broke up with them. They're really struggling. Would you would you mind just saying hey and initiating the conversation? Because I think we've talked around this device stuff. They're going here to their phone to solve those issues that can only be solved in community with other people. And I sometimes laugh about it being my dastardly plan that I step in and do some intervention by putting those people into inviting them to supper, putting those people intentionally around them so that sometimes the conversation doesn't happen. Sometimes the conversation doesn't happen the way I want it to, but there's the opportunity. And I don't know, Doug, do you think that's totally nuts?
No, I mean, we do that too, right? The reality is these people already know what you're struggling with because you've already talked to them about it, and they're already praying for your children. I don't know when you grew up. The way I grew up is my neighbor across the street was also my mom, and if she saw me doing something wrong, she had the authority to pull me aside and talk to me like, "Hey," because my parents weren't home, so we had that kind of relationship. But I think we have to build that art. I hate to use the word artificially, but we have to intentionally build that now. It's not as natural as it used to be because we're all disconnected. We're not as connected. We've done that too, Tanya. I'll be honest. I mean, I've talked to dads. We even that we're trying to help people out. It's not ill will. I think it's just using the tools God has given us.
Well, when you are working on what for the mom that's listening to us right now, what are some techniques she can use for those kiddos who are in that range where they're still at home? Say that 6 to 15, where they're still listening, they still have some ears open for you, and they are seeing this device take hold of their kid.
Yeah. Um, so like I said, I do have conversation scripts in there. So I think that's a good place to start. One of the things that I have that I do with my son guys is we do a daily check-in, and I try to make it as non-threatening as possible because I think there's beauty in conversation. Even if their mic is muted, they're still listening. And this takes patience, right? Like, I don't really want to have a conversation where you're just staring at me, but just constantly, consistently digging in. Um, from like the 9 to 12 years old, they still have the curiosity. They're going to listen to you. But once our kids get like 13 and 15, that's where they have like identity. They have got the pressures. They're being shaped by others. And so you can have those conversations like, hey, at school today, what's the craziest thing you saw at school? Did anything happen today at school that you want to talk to me about? Nah, everything's good. Okay. I find just constantly, daily, just engaging, knowing that we know this kids want to, for us to love them. They want boundaries, even though they don't know they want that. But a lot of time the mic is muted. And to let them know that anything you tell me, I'm not going to give you shame or guilt. I'm actually going to walk alongside this with you. Anything that you're struggling with. I think that's how God shaped. I mean, if we talk about Adam and Eve, that's the whole thing that happened in the garden. I mean, he knew everything that went on. He's like, why are you hiding from me? Because
Mm-hmm.
I still love you. And that's the strategy that we use a lot. I mean, our job here is not to be the loudest, but it's to be the kindest, most consistent voice in their life. We go into the room, we sit on the edge of the bed and say, hey, I see you. I know this is a hard season. Tell me one thing that's like really heavy for you right now. So initiating the conversation. I know that's very basic, but I think there's the authenticity. I've seen that a lot. And as I've walked through this with several young men and their families, it really, really is effective just to know the kids are going to constantly push back. But I don't know about you, if you've ever been in an argument with somebody and you just kind of break the argument, you're like, I don't want to talk. No, no, but you just keep pushing in. And eventually you have that breakthrough and the release. And I will add this also to let our kids know that, like I said, I've walked through this too. I've struggled with the same things you're struggling with. And, I can help you with this. I've been down this road and the relief. I don't know if you've ever struggled with something, and someone's like, I struggle with that too. You're like, "Ugh, oh gosh, the relief that you feel, you're like, I'm not the crazy one. I may be the crazy one, but I'm not the only one that's struggling for this. Just being present, prayerful, excuse me, there's a lot of P's, being present, being prayerful, and being persistent. I love the three P's. I try to do all those consistently. Not
And
perfect.
being honest. We had
Yes.
something
Oh,
happen
authenticity.
when
Yeah.
the first one was 17, and my husband and I were sitting at the table, and we looked at him and he looked at us, and we said, okay, we have been 17. You are now 17, but we
Yes.
have never parented a 17-year-old. So we need a pause in this conversation to go and talk with other people who have dealt with this before. And then we're all going to come back. It was one of the most brilliant moments we had
Oh my,
because
you're
we
like,
were
let's remember we
totally
did that. Yeah.
stumped. We were completely and totally stumped. And so we just had to be honest with him and go, okay, even as 17-year-olds, we haven't had to experience this. We don't know. You're going to have to give us, we all need to go seek some wise counsel at this point because
Hmm.
we don't know. So that was a real eye opener that I've been able to use as they've gotten a little bit older to look at them like deer in the headlights and go, I don't have a clue, but I'm going to stand with you and we're going to figure it out. We're going to find whatever we need. So as if we move from the stage to that later teen, so we're opening the conversation in that earlier part, we move to the later teen. What are your thoughts on how to keep that open so that you're not having the shame and guilt, so they are coming to you?
Yeah. I want to hit on a point that you just said real quick that one of the awesome trends that I'm seeing that we've not done a good job with in healthcare is mental health. And I know that's something that you probably hit on a bunch, but being able to bring in someone that has professional training in this. So I've had parents where they continue to hit walls and continue tried all the techniques and they do. I just want to hit on the third party thing you were talking about, that being able to bring in someone that has professional training as a counselor and to help intervene in that. There's so much beauty in that. And, when I first became a nurse, we were like, and in the churches, well, at least the churches I've been involved in, counseling wasn't encouraged, but I'm seeing that more and more than mental health. And I think there's a lot of power in that. But to answer your question with our the completely lost kid or the older kids. I think and this is going to be from my wilderness background. We just need to cut things off, the devices off, and go do something fun that kind of releases our serotonin, something that an adventure that you can do together and bond, something that you can look back on and say, man, you remember when we did this? So it'll be maybe a mom and daughter date or daddy daughter date or something like that, where you go out and build an adventure. And what that does is it gives you a new canvas to build your relationship on and memories that you can build on. And then I see it as an effective, this is just from taking kids in the wilderness because everything changes. You have they can help build a new identity of who they are with you, and you can share those memories. It opens up the conversation. So it may not be camping, but it may like tilling the garden. I think just being outdoors or doing something outside of devices and intentionally doing that. That's one of the strategies that I would recommend. Not sure if that answers your question completely, but that's one of the strategies I do.
Oh, it does. Now, I really want to know more about the work you're doing right now and how people can access you, find you. And is there something that you'd like to bring out that maybe I haven't asked a question about? That's like four questions in one, but pick
Yes.
where you
Well,
want to go.
I've answered 20 questions in one today because I'm very passionate about it. But the Vanguard Project, the whole goal is to equip dads and moms with the tools to be able to help their kids with digital addiction, pornography, and AI. And one of the things I will add today that we kind of hit on that the main thing that we're really seeing, and I want parents to be aware of, is the things that kids are being exposed to on their devices. One, we're seeing a trend where kids can have AI conversations, not on an app, but just like a normal chat conversation. Say if you and I were texting back and forth, it looks like a normal conversation, but it's totally controlled by an AI bot that can tell them everything they want to hear. I'm never going to tell them no. And the conversations don't have limits. So just the awareness and being able to do a device audit. The first device audit you have to do is with yourself, what you're using, like you and I've talked about. And then once you've done the device audit with yourself, you can go to your children like, hey, this is the limitation I'm going to place on myself. And you can make a covenant like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And why don't you do this with me? So that's the big thing that I would add. I love that. And also being careful with, I ran into a dad the other day that his daughter was using Roblox and he thought it was an innocent thing, but ended up being in a chat room and she was being groomed by um, a young man and just scary. So just device audit and being aware. So the Vanguard Project, you can get my book at thevanguardproject.org. We also are doing where I live, but we're going to be hopefully expanding this, doing 1 day workshops. And the goal of the workshop or the conference is to get dads and sons there where we can talk about and have a really fun day, but just really talk about what God's blueprint for us is, what its design is, and its design for what intimacy really should look like. Because I feel like the biggest thing that we're talking about is this is rewiring the way boys think about relationships and the way they think about, and not only intimate relationships, but all relationships. You and I've talked a lot about that today, that we're seeing rampant, that people have difficulty, social anxiety, they'd rather just talk to chat GPT or Gemini or whoever. So yeah.
When you're talking about, and we talked about this before we got started, what if there is no father in the picture? What are
Yeah.
the options for women?
Well, the all this can be adapted. Okay, yes, the tone is to the father, but I have protocols in there that we've not you and I've not even, this book is very dense, so you can't sit down and read it in one setting. There's a lot of content in there, but teaching, I call it the HALT protocol. So moms can use this. This is a lot of times when we get into digital addiction or anything, it's when we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And this is for all of us, right? We start seeking other things. So there's that in there. And there's alert protocol. So there's a lot of like acronyms that we use, and you can draw all of that out as tools that you can use. I wrote to the dads because I'm a dad, but moms can easily, I mean, we all know, I always joke about this. There would be no children on earth if it was left up to us men because we could not do what God has prepared women to do. And I'm not just saying this because I'm on your podcast, but as a dad of women, I know women are the superpower in our society. And it takes both of us. So I would just say to the single mom, you're not alone. And you've got this book can help you, but I really encourage you to just reach out to community. You can email me through the book. I have other resources I would love to share with you. So it's on the website also. But we intentionally, as we were going through the book, my wife helped me edit it. We really tried to make sure it was translatable to everyone. And I think the principles really resonate. And my wife was the biggest fan of the book, which surprised me. I was like, oh, okay. And that's why we moved. I mean,
And
I don't know. Yeah, she
from
was my
my
biggest editor
perspective, don't give up. I mean, there's resources out there that even though
absolutely
they say they're
100%.
for fathers and sons, you can use that too. Don't give up because those young men, if we look
They
at
need
it,
you.
who is it that put Moses in the river?
Come
It
on.
was his mom. Who
Yep.
was it that signaled Pharaoh's daughter that he was there and she was going to find? It was mom. I'm not
Yep.
saying that dads are not equally as important, but we
Right.
all can step in, and I think the thing that I have learned is God will father and mother us all depending on what we still need,
Our
what is not
circumstances.
there. Yeah,
Right. And the
absolutely.
biggest conversation I had, you and I talking about this beforehand. I've had a lot of moms like, hey, I bought this for my husband. I'm hoping he'll read it. And knowing, but he may not. And you may, I mean, my wife's done this with things. She's read a book. She's like, hey, you should read this chapter right here. And so my book is not the only answer, but I'm with you. Don't give up. Our kids need us and they just want to be loved. They want us to be present. They want to be unconditionally loved, no shame, like God loves us. And it's a battle out there. So I just want to be a tool. I want to be an encourager and just let the moms out there know that, you got this. I agree with you, Tanya. And then, you know, hopefully this tool can be something that will be great in your armory to help you raise your young men and your young women.
That's right. Well, Doug, I really appreciate you being here. Give us your .com one more time for those that are listening.
Yeah, it's the vanguardproject.org, or you can email me at info@thevanguardproject.org.
Fantastic. He's got all kinds of tools, and it's that eyeball to eyeball creating space. So just before we go, for moms with older kids, I had a mom say to me, she had her adult kids living at home. They hadn't quite launched yet. She said, sometimes I just hang out in the kitchen because I know they've got to eat. And so I just wait until they show up. And I mean, when you can no longer do family meals, when things schedules are so crazy, the kitchen is a good place to hang out. And
I
they will
love
show
that.
up eventually.
They're going to get hungry. Yeah.
That's the one thing we know for sure. And hanging out in the bathroom would be weird. So the kitchen works.
Yeah. By the empty milk jug. I used to leave a lot of empty milk jugs when I was a kid.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Doug, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.